1 minute!
Adam and I are here, and we have a super secret special guest that's waiting in the wings. And I fucked up and brought us to screen too early, so here's the Monthly Minutes intro video!
Woo!
Wow.
You know, that might be a better format.
It might be, yeah.
It might be. They'll come and say hi and then run the intro.
It might work better. Actually, it probably does work better. Who could the guest be, chat ass? I don't know. Let's see. We've got Amy from Crown and Bow Dice.
Amy from Crown and Bow Dice.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to our crazy talk show.
Thanks for having me.
It gets weird, but it's fun.
Weird I can handle.
All right. Well, if this is your first time watching, we are just going to talk about some of the Utopia episodes. And Amy's here because she participated in our stream, Hiding in the Reeds. And we're going to chat about that. Our Patreon subscribers have access to both episodes now. So we're going to talk about the full thing. If you haven't listened, spoilers when we get to that point. So yeah, first off, hi. Hello. How are you both?
Good.
Good. I've only been awake for an hour.
No, I haven't been awake much longer.
All
like
right.
an hour longer than that.
Yeah.
So,
It's 3 p.m. here, so I think you'd probably be a little concerned if I just got up.
I mean, it is noon, but yeah. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
Cool. Well, Amy, feel free to ask me questions, ask Adam questions. I don't know if you're caught up on episodes, but chime in from a listener perspective. It's going to be really cool to have that here on the stream as we dive into episode 53. I was wrong in the description as well, but we're on episode 53 titled Brunch. We're going to talk about the brunch episode.
The brunch episode.
But first thing that happens in that episode, Scylla and Godfrey have this beautiful heart-to-heart on the boat, which I did not expect to happen, honestly, but it was so great. How do you feel about that? What was Godfrey thinking?
No, I loved that moment because it was a moment that Godfrey's been wanting to have with Scylla specifically, kind of like meta knowledge, because there's been a lot of guilt thrown on her by like Weaver and others for leaving Godfrey behind in the situation at the tower. So I really wanted to have that one-on-one, like as a character and as a player, both to like mostly to explore Scylla's headspace, because I think Scylla's the one character who we know the absolute least about. Like, it's the one character who has a definitive backstory that we haven't seen any of up until that point.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to like, here is your entrance. You here, please talk. I want to explore what's happening there.
Do you feel like you actually learned anything in that conversation?
I think I learned more from the personal flashback or what happened that night more so than in that conversation. But at the same point, I think it's like the first door opening like move, because I learned something. There was a specific quote where Scylla said like, it was during a back and forth. It's like, that's why I didn't want new armor in relation to like some of the back and forths. I think Godfrey's like, that's why I didn't want any of us to be friends. And then Scylla retorted with like, that's why I didn't want new armor, which there's a lot to like dig into there. And it means that there's more going on with the armor than I think anyone knows. And I have theories now, but we'll have to see.
What was your theory before that? Just that she didn't want it?
I didn't have an active theory because we didn't
okay.
know enough, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So like I have a little bit of meta knowledge just knowing what kind of paladin she's playing, right?
Yeah.
And so that gives a little bit of context as to why she might be wearing rusty, worn down armor. But I think after that, it's like, okay. I think there are like things being set up that might be leading to a reveal there. I don't know if I want to like make those predictions on this show or not, or keep them close.
That's fair. Yeah. I had been waiting from a DM perspective. I had been waiting for a moment to have that like dream / like weird, like late at night, been up for 12 hours straight, like I can't think of the word. I've been up for an hour. Delusion. Yeah. For a while, and that was like the perfect moment with the waves and everything. So I also loved that. Liz just randomly was like, "Yeah, Scylla's not going to sleep tonight."
Yeah.
And actually, now that we're talking about this, I realized that I never made her make any con saves to see if she was tired throughout this entire next day.
Are you sure you didn't? I thought you did.
Pretty sure I didn't. Granted, y'all did.
So.
I don't think so. I think y'all short rested at the end of the last episode we'll talk about, which maybe is.
Yeah. Why? Maybe the brunch was just that good, right?
The brunch was so good, especially for Scylla.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you all head off the boat. You decide to go get some brunch. But instead of going with Ziba, Scylla, and Morgus directly to the brunch spot, Godfrey follows. I'm sorry, Liz just put in the chat, Silly's always tired. Scylla, correction. Which is kind of an inside joke because Ed mixes up Ziba and Scylla a lot, and sometimes it just comes out a random word. That's so cute and funny.
Yeah, I have that written down in my notes for this episode. Is Zilla?
Zilla. Yes. Yeah, so Godfrey decides to head to the shop with Livy. Livy gets some shirts for Ziba. You get some new healers kits. You see kind of some of the destruction of the main temple square and the rest of the city moving forward. And the rest of the party heads to brunch. There's the hilarious interaction between just everyone at the table at brunch before Godfrey and Livy get there. It's pure chaos, and I just fed it, and I loved it so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, Morgus starts playing with Ziba's sugar, trying to eat the avocado skin for his avocado for his breakfast. Scylla realizes that maybe she knows the server. It was just good, wholesome bunch of friends at brunch.
Yeah.
What were you thinking as a listener, Amy, and also Adam, not in that scene specifically, where you're just like, this is hilarious? You're like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? Or, you know, what?
Yeah, I think it was a fun like wind down episode. There's been a lot going on, a lot of build up, a lot of lore reveal. So having that just like RP of them bonding as a group was really fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was a nice like slice of life insert into the campaign, which I think is nice to have every now and then.
Yeah. While there, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I like seeing some of the themes before come back of like the biscuits and the coffee and stuff that we saw some of their likes come back into the brunch, and that was fun.
Yeah. It was a good time. And y'all met the Wednesday group, which maybe listeners didn't realize, but the other party in the brunch room, because we're not a video stream, you didn't see Daniel and Liz's faces as I was describing them, and then realizing that it is the Wednesday group party of players that they've now found in the Thursday game, which was a little Easter egg for them, but also there might be a reason why it's good to have another adventuring party in the city right now. Which is not a spoiler. I think y'all probably picked up on that. Also, that was my cats running into a paper bag.
Oh. Best toy.
Best toy.
Always.
The party then splits again. Livy and Morgus head to the Bookish Brow, and Godfrey, Scylla, and Ziba go to get Ziba a haircut because apparently that's a disguise. Which was another slice of life episode. It's a good time. There's some awesome bonding between Scylla and Ziba. Scylla's like, the description of like, yeah, I'm gonna wait a few minutes, like when your mom drops you off and makes you go in, and then goes and finds a place to park and then comes in to help, like that like took me back a little bit to like Ziba freaking out. Yeah, it was just a good time. Why did you
it was nice to see Scylla taking that maternal role more. Like, she hasn't been always the most warm and fuzzy, so showing this little glimmer of this softer side with Ziba was cute.
Yeah, I thought so too. Especially when we had that whole like side quest with Oliver.
Yeah.
And she was just like, don't touch me, leave me alone, don't get away from me. And now it's kind of turned around. Yeah, that happens. Godfrey, you stay outside.
Mm-hmm.
What was your thinking in that moment when you like decided which group to go with, and then what exactly you would do once you got there?
Well, Godfrey wouldn't have been any help in the library, and like that's his full thing, because like it maybe doesn't come across too much because Godfrey's very polite and he knows a lot about medicine, but Godfrey's kind of dumb. Like, he's not smart. He's not good at looking for things. He's good at seeing things, but not like putting pieces together. So the idea of a library is just beyond his purview. It's not a place he likes to be. It's not something he wants to do. And then the other option was barbershop, which, might as well go with those two. Like, it wouldn't have made too much sense for him to go off on his own to go do like a third thing and split the party even more. Even though he is very interested in helping out medically with what's going on at the castle, especially since there's like a call to arms for healers to go help out. But for that moment, there's still like a lot of suspicion around Ziba, and he wanted to make sure that there was like at least a passable disguise or something for her.
Yeah. Fair enough. Morgus and Livy then head to the Bookish Brow. Excuse me. Which is a pretty unique place in the entire world of Rickbonish. We're not to it yet, but for anyone who's also listening to Both is Good, Adam and I do an episode on magic systems and creating magic in your world, and it's turned into a series. But in the beginning, we talk about like what level of magic is accessible to just like the general populace in your world. And I don't know if listeners would have noticed, but the level of magic involved in this one bookshop is extreme, like ridiculously higher than anywhere else in the world. Like, floating lanterns and ever burning fireplaces are like cantrips, right? Where this has multiple doors to teleport you to different dimensions and different libraries. And it's really fun for me to bring that about, and I didn't know if anyone caught that or if that piqued anyone's interest, but I figured I'd call it out. Yeah. So Morgus gets a tea, and he and Livy place their hand on a doorknob of one of these doors and find themselves in a creepy room of books that's lit with red flame. And as they walk through the corridor, some of the books fall to the ground and fly over and start trying to attack them as they find a book on a champion of Mysheria, which is also an interesting book. What were your thoughts just generally about that whole experience, what they learned? Obviously, I'll call out that rules went out the window in that moment. I wanted it to be more like cinematic than like mechanicsy, and so I didn't care that Morgus held shield for like 3 minutes or whatever. But yeah.
Do you want me to go first?
Whomever.
I can go first. Yeah. Okay. Sure. I thought it was a cool moment. I'm trying not to keep looking in on what they've found because their characters still haven't shared that information yet. And it might be purposely not sharing that information. But I think like that's an important piece of literature to have. I'm really interested to see where that goes. And at first I also thought the floating book, because as you described like this swarm attacking Morgus, there was one that like popped out of the shelf first and like sat before him, and I was like, that's a book for him. Like he needs to take that book. There's going to be important information on it. But they just didn't. They ignored taking that one book, just fought off the swarm, took the book on the Champion of the Gods and left. So I'm really curious about what, if that floating book was just like a representation of the swarm that was coming after them, or if it was like something like literally flying off the shelf to be for Morgus to take that he just chose not to.
You'll never know.
You'll never know.
Anything to add, Amy? You certainly do not have to.
No, just I think you mentioned that you kind of let the rules go out the window, and I don't mind that so much as a viewer. Like, I think sometimes it's better to make things, I mean, like rule of cool, right? As much as I like mechanics of the game, creating those dramatic moments, especially for what you guys are doing, is, I think that was a good choice.
Yay! Okay, cool.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, that takes us to the end of both Brunch and Errands, episodes 53 and 54, as we head on over to Mel's. So Mel's part 1, Morgus and Livy pop out of the ceiling as they've run away from the swarm of books, fall onto some cushions, and they are in a moral dilemma on whether or not to steal this Book of the Champions. They figure out that there's a ward on the door that will do something to them if they try to do that, so they take it over to a book attendant and ask to put it on hold. They do. They ask what is going on, and if the person could look into it. And as a true hourly employee, they say, I'll tell my manager. And Godfrey and that part of the party and Morgus and Livy meet back up on the road to Mel's.
I loved your NPC in that book story.
Oh yeah.
You're really good at creating those like derpy sort of. They were asking way too much of him.
He was a very fun person to play. I was imagining somewhere like a lesser extreme version of the sloth at the DMV from Zootopia.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's 100% the vibes I was getting.
Yeah. Yeah, you all gather back together. You pass some goats that chew on Ziba's new shirt, but really nothing happens on the road. And you make it to Mel's, and you meet a few different folks at Mel's house. And you instantly all are suspicious. Rightfully so, honestly. I forget who it was first. I think it was you, Adam, that was just like insight check. It might have been Livy, but I think it was you. And I love that. Yeah.
It's definitely me because they gave us different timelines from what the poster said to what they were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. After all the suspiciousness, was there any part of Godfrey that was just like, yeah, I don't want to do this?
Yeah, 100%. Like, immediately after all that suspicion, it's like, well, this is a trap. That's why he looked at the doors to the cellar. It's like, oh, the cellar can lock from the outside. We shouldn't go in the cellar. Like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we doing this? The rest of the party is like, we're doing the job. I'm like, yeah, okay.
It really highlighted the different personality types in the group because, like, some people were just, I'm all in, I'm going to charge forward, and who's going to be on the side not wanting to go down.
Yeah. Yeah, Ziba just strides down inside. Y'all get some other details. There's like a pond with some dead fish and the door that locks from the inside. And you initially decide, Adam, to have Godfrey stay up at the top so that they can't lock you in because you figured this out. And then Livy's like, oh, yeah, I have a spell for that. And you're like, oh, okay. So you come
Yeah, because I want a yes and, right? Like, like when a party member's like, you know what, I've got that covered. They can't lock us from down here. You got a way out. Like, you know, the brain part of me, the game part of me is like, okay, yeah, like it's gonna be really bad if I stay up here and there's a combat down there and I'm not able to help, you know, and I'm not able to support, or then I have to run down and it gets locked in. So I'm like, okay, party member, you told me, let's go down. Let's do it. Yep. Immediately locked.
Yeah. Later we find out that spell is Shatter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not quite the finesse you were hoping for.
The spell that famously opens locked doors. Shatter.
Oh man, I loved that moment so much.
It's such a good moment.
It's
just a beautiful D&D moment.
Yeah. Godfrey and Scylla can't really see very well, so y'all are using torches. Ziba sees something in the shadows, but then I rolled a pretty high stealth, and Scylla doesn't find it between the barrels. But soon enough, you all are face to face with a scary creature oozing necrotic damage in a cloud. And we table talk a lot, Adam and I, outside of games, which I like. I don't think I've asked you this. In session, did you realize what you were fighting? Or were you like, oh, this is bad? Or were you like, oh, we got this? What was your overall sentiment?
So that is one of the stat blocks I had never looked at before. So I had no idea what we were fighting.
Yes!
I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. I realized that I wasn't taking damage from the spores, probably because I wasn't breathing. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, let's do it. Immune to necrotic damage. Do you see, when you described it, I thought they were healing from necrotic damage. So I was really like, oh no. Bad news. It just made this fight harder.
Yeah, they weren't healing. They were just immune to it. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't until you shared what they were afterwards that I was like, oh no, this was bad.
Yeah, I may or may not have put out a tweet after that was like, I did such a bad job running this creature. Yeah, and what's funny about that is, like, in the moment, y'all were just doing such cool stuff, and like, honestly, I don't think it was that difficult, and I kind of forgot about like their most horrible stat, because no matter how much prep you do, like in the moment, if it's cool, it's cool. I'm not gonna like stop and like reread the stat sheet just to like try and kill you all. That's just not my style. So yeah, I thought it was fun. Livy, there's also a fun moment where Livy tries to shoot an arrow from the ceiling, and he's like, is that a disadvantage? And I was like, no. Why would that be a disadvantage. You're a vampire. And then everyone's was like, oh yeah, just because I'm a vampire means I can shoot arrows upside down. That's common knowledge. Yeah. I feel like it was a good razzing everyone at the table. Everyone was just razzing everyone. And it was a good time. Yeah. And that's the end of... Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I like that you managed to surprise Adam with something he hadn't seen, because I know what a well-versed and experienced DM Adam is. For you to actually manage to pull something out of your hat that he hadn't read the stat block on.
There's like a lot. There's a lot I haven't seen. I've seen a lot too, though. So like,
yeah,
that's fair.
It was cool. Were you ever, as a listener, Amy, were you ever like, oh no, like this is gonna be horrible, they're all gonna die?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, there's always that little chance, but they have quite a few tricks up their sleeves, and they're a pretty creative group of players. So I had a feeling someone would pull something off.
Yeah. This is also in my streak of not being able to roll above a 10. I was so mad after that, and this rolls into the stream part. Anything else to add about the Utopia episodes before we go over to hiding in the reeds stuff? Any questions for me? Questions for each other? Anything at all?
I'm good.
All right.
Good. Yeah.
Cool. Well, then the next thing that we published, it wasn't the next thing that aired. The stream aired on August 24th, but the next thing that was published was Hiding in the Reeds Part 1. Part 2 came out for Patreon subscribers yesterday. So they have access to the full show. We... sorry, I got distracted by chat again. And... we worked really hard on this stream, like pre-stream, and I wanted to touch a little bit on that as well, Amy, because your character is just so unique, and the way that the art turned out is just a total testament to like your creativity and your direction to the illustrator, and it was just so good. And I wanted to start with like what drew you to playing a roguish poison build character?
I think it started with when you and I were chatting about doing the stream, and I asked, like, because I tend to be the kind of player who's like, okay, what hole needs to be filled? So when you said everyone had done magic users, it's like, okay, we're gonna need someone who can do a bit of damage outside of, because we're not the highest level. Like, what can I do that I enjoy? And I get bored with barbarians, to be honest. No offense to barbarian players. I like having skills. So rogue is, I've done like for a one shot before, and so that was kind of my jumping off point of what would I like to do if I built a rogue. And that sneaky, because you had done the race subtypes, okay, someone who goes out, someone who's sneaky, that'll work. And Daniel always jokes about how I make creepy cute characters. So staying on brand, I suppose, with like the Wednesday Addams of mushrooms.
Yeah. I loved her so much. And she played well with all the connections you made like pre-stream with the other characters, which was really cool. But yeah, the stream starts. I was thinking of this as like classic animated fantasy movie montage where there's just like this kid running through town, gathering together all the warriors. And it was really awesome when they got to you, and you all were just hanging out in the pub, and you were like, I'm plants. I'm not people. What are they doing? Yeah, it was great. And of course, we have like a little moment of character introduction with everyone as we run through, and everyone gathers back at the library. And I'm so sad that like some of this audio content, this is my fault, viewers. I forgot to hit record in the back end platform until after the first break, which is why the video and the audio from the first like 15 to 20 minutes of all the post production pieces are still kind of wonky and skippy. But there are some really awesome moments. Just getting the party together, signing contracts, paperwork.
Oh my god.
Yeah. As soon as you met everyone's characters in game, were you like, we're gonna die, we're gonna live? Like, did you have any like instant like gut reactions to anything?
Possibly that we were gonna die. Like we were the most ragtag bunch of goofballs. I think my favorite was Contractor. Like that was just freaking hysterical.
Yeah.
But yeah, my character just does not people. She'd rather hang out by herself and go on her own. So being grouped with that group of like random we are not adventurers and now we're stuck doing this. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Adam, as a listener, what were you thinking as like the intros and the like intro call to adventure kind of was happening?
I thought it was a cool way to do a call to adventure. I sadly didn't get a lot of the audio. I wasn't able to catch it live in the audio. At the start of it is a little skippy, but like it was really endearing. And it was like, yeah, I was picking up those vibes that this was like an adventure movie, the gathering everyone up. I know a bit about each of the characters from outside, so like I had that context. And I also had the list of regulations that Contractor had written up. So
yeah,
I'm excited to go back and listen to it again, like in its full entirety.
Yeah.
In the next coming days, since both parts are out now.
Yeah. That's a good call out. So for folks who don't know, Avis actually wrote the rules and regulations that Contractor needed to follow in a sheet of paper that I distributed to all the players, and it's priceless. I feel like I need to share it with the Patreon. It's so good. I did not help at all, which is the best part. Like, I love when players just come to the table with like, this is a piece of my character that's important. And like, hell yes.
That was some amazing commitment to the character. That list was amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
My character wouldn't necessarily care about following the rules, but I like that they made them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's like the best part about rules. It's specifically they're there so some characters could break them and choose not to follow them and create that like internal conflict.
It certainly added this idea of like, the rebellion or like going against the man kind of, in a way. Just really cool. But soon enough, the head librarian sends you all out to just observe Medusa. That's the rule of mushroom folk in the world of Rigmonish. They are observers. They're storytellers, keepers. They tell the stories and write the histories of the gods as they appear and disappear on the material plane. And you head out with Sparkles, Buggy's glitter dispensing pseudo dragon down the road. And Adam kind of helped me. We chatted a little bit before the stream about building the encounter, and I was like, I knew I wanted there to be like a smaller fight following this like one shot formula I have, at least for myself. And sure enough, y'all were like, we're gonna sneak past the bears. And you all rolled high enough that it was gonna work. But it would have been the shortest possible stream if that would have happened. And so I was like, what can I do? What can I do? And then it just kind of like organically came, and I didn't try to stop it. And I had, the bear move a log, which they would do if they're like rummaging for things in the brush, and a stream of water comes down and blocks the party's path and begins to fill up around them in this little divot of dirt that you all are standing in. I kind of felt bad because a lot of you, like, there was the whole thing where Archivist was casting mage armor on people, and you had, like, dipped your arrows in poison, Amy. Everyone was, like, prepped for a fight, and then you successfully stealth around, and it turned into a skills challenge rather than, like, a battle. And I was like, oh, well, at least I used resources. That was the point in general, was just to, like, use up some resources. But yeah, what were your thoughts as the water, as it shifted from, like, we're going to fight the bears to, like, a skills challenge?
Well, with the rolls I was getting trying to shoot my arrows across to the other side, I thought I might drown, but I did not do so well on the skill checks for that one. But yeah, no, it was a fun challenge. I thought we'd end up fighting the bears. I definitely thought they'd end up noticing us at some point. But this is the interesting part about having so many magic users in the party, is we could sneak out of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many folks having, like, mounts essentially was very helpful. The biggest hole in the mushroom folk race and sub races are, like, the size factor, which came up a few times in the stream. Like, how far are we traveling? How big is Steel Defender? Because rules is written, it's a medium creature, like a normal sized creature. So that's why I was like, well, Avis, it can be a baby deer. So it's just like this mushroom on top of this metal huge baby deer, which is, like, gigantic compared to a mushroom, honestly. So I honestly loved how broken, like, that aspect was compared to, like, all the other pieces being pretty solid. But I'm wondering if it was, like, a hamper for gameplay, or, like,
there were some moments of confusion, I think, but it didn't hamper the gameplay necessarily. It just, there was some ironing out of trying to think, okay, if it's 30 feet, is it actually 30 inches? Would my spell hit? Would my arrow hit?
Yeah.
Like, it was mostly in combat, I think, that it became a little bit confusing. Avis's baby deer, though, was hysterical. Like, and I think what people need to know is that Avis was doing, like, blueprints of this thing.
She saw
on the side, like,
yeah.
Avis was fully planning it out, and I love that they brought their engineering background to, like, the description of the parts and how it worked was so on point.
Yeah, absolutely. They're hysterical, and yeah, loved that. Well, everyone makes it through. Everyone makes it through the bear water encounter. Steel Defender picks up you. I don't actually remember. I know Brewer got on the... Oh, no, you were warped by Archivist away.
Yeah.
Brewer gets on Steel Defender with... No, that's not true either. Brewer gets on the Pseudo Dragon with Buggy. They fly. And Archivist gets scooped up by a contractor and put on the back of the Steel Defender. And there's this beautiful moment later where Avis is like, Archivist, are you still up here? And Daniel's just like, I don't know. And they're just like, okay, well, so hop on for the ride. And they're just, like, mimicking the jerky movements of this baby deer thing. And there was a beautiful collaborative moment where Daniel was like, pretends like Archivist cut or shocked himself, like, on the creature. And he was like, nope, I'm out. Get me down. Get down. And contractor's like, well, be sure to plug it back in. I loved that. I loved that a lot. But yeah, you keep going and you make it to the lake and you make it to Medusa, and it was really cool to see how even this chaotic group like understood the lore and the assignment. They were like, oh, hide, listen, watch, take notes. Buggy had this other thing with their backstory where they were a warlock, archfey warlock, so they'd made a pact with the patron of spring, who was like the person who is in charge of this part of the woods. And so he had this existential crisis, I guess, somewhat happening while seeing this goddess in the grove. And then as Nyx, the deity, comes through. Adam, this is all new for you. You haven't, I don't know if you've listened to part 2 yet, but we are now officially into part 2 territory. So spoilers if you haven't listened yet. But there's a big lore drop, which was a little bit of the overall intention with the stream, but also to have fun. And I was curious, Amy, as like a listener of the podcast, someone who knows what has happened with Godfrey and with Nyx and Remus and kind of that whole thing, if it was helpful to see and gather this lore, or what you thought about what you learned through the lore between Nyx and Medusa.
It was interesting to get a little bit of insight to what was happening behind the curtain with the gods. I'm not great with subtext, so I don't know how much of it I've actually pieced together properly, but it was cool to watch that drama play out.
Yeah. Well, there's a steamy scene and there's a fight scene. Oh, excuse me. They don't actually fight. It's just like, a tensious moment scene. And Nyx leaves. They are only there for a short amount of time before they're just like, you said his name. And there's some ripples while this is happening, while they're pulling a Sims behind the bushes. A woohoo behind the bushes. I love that you have no context here out of it. That was your reaction. Makes me really happy, actually. But there's some ripples happening in the lake. And for me, it was really interesting to see that the party didn't really care about that. They cared more about like getting the story, which I think is true with what the mushroom folk would do. So again, just like a testament to following the lore. I think at one point Botanist was like, look, I'll shoot an arrow in it or something, but then more things happened. And as soon as Nyx leaves and Medusa comes out from behind the bushes to try to get them to stop, this lion-mounted knight teleports out of the lake and jumps onto the bank. And Medusa takes off her blindfold she's been wearing and is unable to turn them to stone. And the battle ensues. I think Archivist rolls a history check and deduces that the mounted knight is the champion of Ruby. God's drama. There's also this really awesome moment where the mushrooms, you all are just like, we're here to watch. Like, do we stop this person from forcibly taking this goddess who doesn't seem to want to go with them, as Medusa like runs away from them? What were your thoughts in that moment? Were you like, we should fight this? Like as a player, were you like, this is a game, we should fight this? Or were you more just like, yeah, we should hide and not do this? I'd run away.
I think as a character, I wanted to shoot arrows. I think my character would have attacked, but as a player, I'm going like, can we even, like, we are tiny, tiny mushroom people. Are we just going to get smushed? And that's the end of stream. So yeah, there was definitely sort of some internal struggle going on, trying to figure out what we should do as a group. I think in that moment, I sort of fell back to what the party led on it. Because we had some characters that just like literally wanted to bolt. But I think we played it well. I like that we sort of intervened a little bit without ruining our cover with Medusa and still gleaning information.
Yeah. What was really fun about that for me is like, I built the mushrooms in my world to be really hard for humanoids to spot, right? Like the only reason Godfrey found the Mushroom King is because you rolled a nat 20. So even as the party decides to fight this knight, doing a lot of damage on this like CR 13 knight that Adam initially told me to nerf, but I didn't. They were failing every perception check to try to see you. So they're just getting pelted by these invisible shit. And they're unable to see these tiny mushrooms that are causing them so much destruction that they just continue to focus on Medusa. And then eventually we were down to like 4 minutes left in the stream. And I successfully had grappled Medusa with the knight and we jumped back through the teleport. And it reminded me of some conversations that I've had with like fellow DMs and like me as a player feeling robbed sometimes when I don't get like the satisfaction of a kill. But then the patron of spring, Ed's warlock patron, comes in, sends some minions in after the knight and gives you all a boon, a reward for finding and fighting. And I'm curious if you felt like that was a satisfying end to that combat.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not the kind of player who has to get a kill in for it to be satisfying. I think for that particular game, especially because it was a one shot and it was with a group of people who are so invested in their characters and so invested in doing amazing RP. It was just nice to have fun with them. Like I didn't have to get a kill in. I wasn't even sure if we would because we're there to watch. Mm-hmm. So I had no expectations on us actually successfully getting any sort of combat kill in. So zero disappointment for me. It was just fun to play with the group.
Yeah. Awesome. We all head back. You fill out your paperwork, contractor, archivist, and everyone succeed in filing the reports. And that's where the stream ends. It's a good time. It's really cool.
Yeah, there was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, now is the time of the monthly minutes where we ask each other questions.
And the chat can also ask questions.
The chat can also ask questions. If you're watching and you'd like to pose questions in the chat, please do. Yeah. Anything around Utopia for Adam? Either for myself, for the stream, for Amy. I have a question. Something I've been thinking about for Adam. Does it bother you that more NPCs don't react to the mask?
No.
Okay.
No, I think that's fine. I think it would get overbearing if every NPC was reacting to the mask.
I think so too. I was thinking about it. I was like, no one has ever really reacted. I mean, some folks have, but like.
Yeah. In that regards, it almost makes me think that it maybe isn't as uncommon a thing. Like it might just be a thing that there are these medics who come from the Sanctuary of Withdrawal, and they all wear masks, and that's just kind of a point of station. You see the masks, you know who they are or what they're doing.
It's now lore. It's now law.
Boom, stamp, done. Makes sense. Next question.
Mostly, I was just playing it as like most people are too nice to care. Like, it's a utopia. No one gives a fuck what you're weering.
It's very Pacific Northwest viewpoint,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Do you have any questions, Adam?
I like chat. They've probably seen weirder things, to be honest.
Yeah.
True.
You always have difficult questions for me.
I mean, it's hard for me to ask because I am unsure of what happened in the mushroom one shot. But what felt like the biggest challenge in that one shot? Like, what was the most or for you, Amy, the highlight of it? Like, what was the thing that was the biggest takeaway?
The highlight of it for me was probably when we were actually starting the adventure and walking through the adventure, because there were a lot of fun exchanges of people showing the personality of their characters. Because all of the characters were just freaking hilarious and had such personality. Like, there wasn't one that I didn't absolutely adore. It was a very, very quirky group. I think the biggest challenge was just trying to navigate that combat, trying to figure out range of weapons and range of spells and stuff like that. But overall, just a really fun time with the RP, with the different characters that were brought to the table.
It was shenanigans the whole time.
Yeah. Mystic, what convinced you to keep that a CR 13 creature?
Honestly, the session prep episode's out, right? That's this week.
Oh, it's not out yet.
It's not out yet. I prepped that conversation I had with you, and then I didn't do any more prep, and I forgot to hit save on my encounter in D&D Beyond, and so in stream I pulled it up and it was the night, and I was like, here we go. That's what happened.
You tweeted ahead of time too, being like, am I gonna kill my players? Probably. I was like, you gotta hit me first.
Yeah.
That my character's ability, I used 1 out of 3 of the natural hiding, the natural camouflage for the whole thing. Is just her dexterity to hide as a rogue assassin was just stupid. She was untouchable.
I loved that, actually. It made so much sense. Yeah. I think this question is for me from Madeline in the chat. So they, as players, have learned this new information about the gods. How does this information carry over to their main character? Or does it? Question mark. Madeline, you're touching on something that I intentionally haven't talked about yet, but maybe I should. I've been thinking about it. The Hiding in the Reeds one shot happens pre-100-Year War. So in regards to how that information is then distilled to the party, that's in the hands of the mushroom folk. But we know that I also really liked the risk of mushrooms experiencing something and then telling the story of how information can be lost in this system. There's still living creatures that can die. So worst case scenario, something would have happened where the story didn't make it back to the village, or some of you had perished and the story didn't make it back to the village. And I really liked the idea of potentially playing with that as well. So, I mean, it's always really difficult as players to play in something like that, have historical knowledge of something. But if anyone tries to pull that stuff out of their hat, no. Yeah.
As a player, I'm very good at compartmentalizing like what I know and what the character knows.
I think
or at least I think I am.
It's impressive. Yeah. Yeah.
But it also, like, I think a cool thing to do with that meta knowledge is to have the ability to play into situations that make sense but could hint at it, or that make sense but happen to have you stumble into that information in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, that happens in storytelling. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, spoilers, but the connection to those gods may be closer in Utopia game than you'll think. I mean, we've already met Erebus, and Godfrey is cosmically tied to her, him, they. So who knows what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, definitely not a betrayal.
What do you mean?
It's just definitely not a betrayal. Like, it's not going to happen.
Do I see a paladin multi-class coming soon? That'd be crazy. Could you even do that as a monk? You don't have the charisma. Anyway.
No, I literally cannot. In the way Godfrey is made. I don't have enough charisma.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Comments?
But cleric, though.
True.
Cleric would fit well. But of course, I'm a fan of playing clerics. I'm in the anomaly, so
clerics are so good.
I like playing clerics. Yeah. I don't have any more questions. I think we've all just had a very good time. But if anyone else has one, we have 2 minutes left.
I have one. Amy, who are you and where could the folks find you outside of Utopia?
Yeah, outside of this game, I am Crown and Bow Dice on Instagram, Crown and Bow on Twitter, just because you can't have a long username. But yeah, I'm a handmade dice maker. So you can, if you're looking for some interesting dice, I do some crazy stuff and some beer dice and stuff like that. So yeah, come check out my Instagram is my primary platform. So Crown and Bow Dice, you can find me there. And I should be restocking soon, actually, a little bit more beer dice for the fall and possibly some fall themed mimics. So that should be interesting.
Well, mimic dice are so cool.
Thank you. I have fun with those ones. I like making the tiny things. Like, that's when I got into making dice, that's what I wanted to do. I like the tiny sculptures, the tiny paintings. Kills my eyes, but I don't care.
Yeah.
You need to have like a magnifying glass like on the arm that you can just like use.
Yeah.
Like flip down.
For the minis, yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Amy, for playing and for joining here. And thanks, Adam, as always, for being awesome and hanging out. Yeah. I gotta feed this cat, so she leaves me alone. We love you all. Thank you for joining. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Goodbye.